So once again, big thanks for joining and welcome to this very special 149th session of Leadership Talks. As you know that these sessions are being organized by India International Education Council and School Lalaji Solutions. India International Education Council is a not-for-profit organization which is working in the field of education. It has collaborators from 12 countries. It aims to create a better world through education, building quality centers for elementary education, approachable for all kids, is another goal of IIEC. It is also trying to find best educational practices across the globe and find ways to implement those in Indian institutions. It is also creating more awareness on hygiene and learning disabilities. It publishes a magazine called World Education Review and many other educational reports. It aims to build 100 chapters in different cities by 2022. It will soon open its membership for institutions and individuals. It also imparts training for leaders, teachers, students, and parents. As you all know that so far we have conducted 148 sessions on this national education policy, this leadership talks platform. We have received 18,244 registrations, 17,408 questions on national education policy. We have received participation from 7 countries: India, USA, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, Nepal, Kuwait, and Russia. From India, we have seen participation from 23 states and 125 cities. We aim to organize minimum 200 sessions. With this, we would be reaching out to 100,000 educators, 20,000 institutions, and 1,000 plus speakers. Like today's speakers would be joining us to share their perspective, ideas, and thoughts on national education policy. So with this, I would request you all to please join me in welcoming our key speakers for this very special 149 session. Our first key speaker for this session, a very senior education leader, Rita Singh ma'am. Rita Singh is former principal with Delhi Public School in Rohini, Delhi. She's a national scholar and trained postgraduate in English literature. After a very long stint, she retired as principal from Delhi Public School, Rohini, Delhi, a school that she founded, nurtured for 20 years, and took to great heights. She's the recipient of National Award for Teacher from the President of India in 2007. Ms. Sen was also appointed by the Lieutenant Governor Delhi as a member of Delhi Education Advisory Board for 2 terms. He served as the Chief Nodal Officer for a Class 12 CBSE evaluation for English Core for many years. He was also a CBSE Master Trainer for CCE and was the recipient of a certificate for in-service training from the Principals Training College, London, United Kingdom. Her wide experience of over 30 years and her enduring services in teaching, training, and writing and developing processes have benefited countless teachers across India. She now conducts workshops on ELT, school management, parenting, and faculty development. Her major skill in conducting workshops is to develop the scope of learning for each participant in the field of English language and literature. Her areas of interest lie in conducting sessions on attitude and personality development through the unconventional methodology. Ms. Sen is also a successful author with Encyclopedia Britannica and Encyclopedia Indianica. We welcome you, Rita ma'am. Thank you for joining. It's an honor to have you.
Thank you.
Welcome, ma'am. I'll come back to you. Our next key speaker, Kesar Patel, ma'am. Kesar Patel ji is principal with Ma Anandmai Memorial School, Rishikesh, Uttarakhand. She's an academician working in the field for the past 21 years with a rebellious mission to revolutionize the education landscape by bringing in cutting-edge technology and getting rid of conventional teaching methods to bringing experiential learning methodologies. She's an experienced educator with a demonstrated history of curriculum development and implementation through highly engaging and interactive teacher training programs. She's a national award winner for innovative methods in education. She has published a book on aptitude series of books, class 1st to 8th. She has also won the Scholastic Teachers Day Honors and essay writing competition for 2 consecutive years. Her story won a prize in the Tata Sky Tale competition. It was broadcasted on Tata Sky Active Stories. She was also appointed a chairperson of International Committee for Sports and Culture, Jammu. She has worked with many prestigious like Zen School, Tagore Global School, Kurukshetra, AKC International School, Jammu, Goenka Public School, Jammu, Central Point School, Nagpur. We welcome you, Kesar ma'am. Thank you for joining. It's an honor to have you.
Thank you. Thank you. Really, it's an honor to be here and looking ahead for a wonderful interactive session. Thank you.
Welcome, ma'am. Thank you for joining. I'll come back to you. Our next key speaker, another very senior education leader, Mathura Prasad Pandey sir. Mathura sir is principal with Aristo Public School, Kadalore, Tamil Nadu. Pandey sir has a vast experience of more than 25 years in classroom management and teaching mathematics at senior secondary classes in the field of school education, along with more than 18 years of experience in school administration and management in different capacities. He has worked as a HOD mathematics for more than 20 years. He is an enthusiastic, committed, cultured, seasoned, innovative, dynamic problem solver, powerful thinker, and a team player. He has worked with many prestigious schools like Tagore Vidya Niketan Higher Secondary School, Narsingpur, Madhya Pradesh, Institution Agarwal Public School. He has also worked as a joint director academics at Alpha Group of Institutions. We welcome you, Mr. Prasad sir. Thank you for joining. It's an honor to have you.
Thank you, sir.
Welcome, sir. I'll come back to you. Our next speaker, Nikita Kothari ji. Nikita ji is principal with Arunodaya Public School, Thane, Mumbai, Maharashtra. She's a distinguished academician with 2 decades of experience. She has done masters in education, master in child counseling, and a postgraduate diploma in management. She's an innovative. She has won Innovative Principal Award and Best Headmistress Award by the former Education Minister of Maharashtra. She regularly writes for magazines and newspapers on education. She is regularly invited to talk on various platforms to share views on education, technology, pedagogy, experiential learning, stress, among others. Welcome, Nikita ma'am. Thank you for joining. It's an honor to have you. Our next key speaker, Dr. Neha Kasturia ji. Neha ji is assistant professor with SRM University. Dr. Kasturia is mentoring biotechnology students as assistant professor in the Department of Biotechnology at SRM University. She's an alumnus of University of Delhi in microbiology and biomedical sciences. After completing her PhD from IIEC CSIR, she has over 5 years of teaching, both undergraduate and postgraduate students in reputed College of University of Delhi and Jamia Millia Islamia University. Dr. Neha is passionate about sharing her expertise in genetics, molecular biology, microbiology with biotechnology students. She's also involved in teaching biology to computer science and engineering students as part of interdisciplinary course of biology for engineers. Besides teaching, she has published research articles in international journals of repute like Nature Chemical Biology and has authored articles for school children in magazines published for CSIR program on youth for leadership and science. We welcome you, Neha ji. Thank you for joining. It's an honor to have you.
Thank you for the introduction.
Welcome. Welcome, Neha ji. I'll come back to you. Thank you for joining. And our last speaker for this very special session, a very senior EdTech leader, Jaswinder Singh ji. Jaswinder ji is founder and CEO of Wordsworth ELT. Jaswinder sir has an experience of 30 years in the field of education and technology and has also served as a consultant to UNESCO and education. Wordsworth English Lab is designed for India and is a highly research initiative of ACT UNIF Group. It is a trusted educational company with 2 decades of service in technology, education and training. Its expertise in technology, multimedia and content development has been instrumental in presenting a world-class language lab solution for academia in India. In a short span of time, Wordsworth English Language Lab has managed considerable recognition across the country for its unique content and methodology. Over 3,000 installations and institutions across the country stand testimony of the quality in product, implementation, training, and continuous service provided by the ACT UNIF and its committed network of dealers. We welcome you, Jaswinder sir. Thank you for joining. It's an honor to have you.
Thank you so much.
Welcome, sir. I'll come back to you. Now, with this, we come to the next part of the session, which is the opening remark part. I would invite all our key speakers for their quick 1-minute opening remark before I come back to them for the main talk. So I would request Rita Sen, ma'am, ma'am, if you can have your 1-minute opening remark.
Yes. Thank you so much, Rajul. First of all, I thank the organizers of India International Education Council for inviting me to be a speaker. It is indeed an honor to speak on NEP 2020 and share my views and listen to the views of the other eminent speakers on the panel. NEP 2020 is indeed a new beginning. The suggestions put forth by NEP 2020, some of them are path-breaking, seminal changes that we've been waiting for a very, very long time. It's indeed an ambitious program for major reforms, the successful implementation of which will require a lot of effort on the part of all the stakeholders. In this context, I think setting of priorities will be of utmost importance, because if there are a lot of ideas as educationists, as school leaders, we need to pick up one or two things that we feel are very important for us and where we can make a difference. So in this context, there are two very important things that have been talked about in NEP. In this rapidly changing world around us, children, we have to understand that children are not just meant to learn, but they must also learn how to learn. And to be able to do that, we need to catch them young. So the focus on the age group of 3 to 6 years, the pre-primary or the Anganwadi segment, as we call it, and bringing it under the purview of formal education is indeed a very, very big step towards making our system truly global. Because we all know that 80% of a child's cognitive development happens during this time, but this was the most unstructured, most neglected, most arbitrary part of a child's education. Even the RTE Act of 2009 did not focus on this age group. It talks about free and compulsory education from 6 to 14 years, but it is completely silent on what happens to millions of children before the age of 6. So NEP, by bringing it under formal education, by formalizing it, therefore certainly makes absolutely a new beginning, because the very beginning of NEP is a pioneering idea. The other factor which I think is very important in NEP is its respect for diversity and its focus on inclusive education. All children, irrespective of their individual or social differences, are benefited by this. And whether they are marginalized, whether they come from disadvantaged or underrepresented sections of society, whether they are with special needs or they are differently abled, it lays down plans and policies in which there is enough opportunity for everyone to thrive in our education system. I would like to elaborate more on this later on in my talk. And these are my opening remarks. Thank you.
Thank you, Rita ma'am. Absolutely, we all agree with you that focus this NEP has given to ECCE and the inclusive education. These are two important aspects this NEP is offering, and we all are very excited to hear your ideas on these two important parts. I'll come back to you, ma'am. Big thanks for sharing this. Now I would invite Kesav Patel, ma'am, for the opening remarks. Kesav, ma'am. Kesav, ma'am, I believe you are on mute. I would request Mathura Prasad Pandey, sir. Sir, if you can have your opening remark.
Sure, sir. Sure, sir. Great, sir. Thank you so much, sir. Very good afternoon to everyone. See, a very important point I want to say that what is education? The Rabindranath Tagore ji has said that the highest is that which does not merely give us information, but makes our life in harmony with all the existence. This was given by Rabindranath Tagore. Second, Mahatma Gandhi ji told, by education, I mean all-round development, all-round drawing of the best in the child and man body, mind and spirit. Even Narendra Modi ji has said, mind is never a problem, but mindset is dash. Now, the education must focus on how to think rather than what to think. Now, here, sir, what I mean to say, this National Education Policy 2020 has been given a shape, which is the document of the central government of India, and it's really making every child developed, skilled, which will become the great leader of the world, any organization, any company, right? Entrepreneur, because our country was the golden bird in ancient time, and now it is the time we need to bring again the education system which can make every child the world leader, the entrepreneur. So this NEP has created the base for that, and I'm so happy that our all educationist people, the community of the country, they are now working together like World Education Review, this magazine, and Lalaji, like education school, like many people now they are coming forward. They understand that what is the importance of education and to improve the quality of every child, to bring every child to school, because this is important point, and this is the document created by the government of India, and with the consulting more than 2.5 lakhs panchayat, 6,600 blocks, and 676 districts. The MHRD has initiated a really very good document which is going to create the revolution in the field of education in the world. And by 2030, we are going to create the great leaders who would be leading to the world. Thank you. This is my opening remarks, sir. Detailing I'll do later on, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. For this detailed opening remark. Big thanks. Now I would request Nikita ma'am, ma'am, if we can have Nikita ma'am, if we can have your quick 1 minute opening remark.
Good. Yeah. Yeah, good afternoon, everyone. My opening remark. Raju sir, namaste. And all the dignitaries, a very, very good afternoon. This is Nikita Kothari, Principal of Arunodaya Public School. Proud to be associated with Rajul sir and many more to come. This is my, I think, fourth or fifth time I'm joining you. And it always feels wonderful to attend wonderful webinars with you. And we get to learn so many things. My opening remark: education is a powerful tool that can change the world. Yes, this is a revolution. Now, with the regional language coming up, we will have less dropouts and a very wonderful start, which we will by 225. Thank you so much. Over to you, Raju sir.
Thank you. Thank you, Nikita ji. I'll come back to you. Big thanks for your participation. I'll come back to you for a detailed perspective. I would now request Neha Kasturia ji. Neha ji, we can have your opening remark.
Good afternoon to everyone. And my opening remarks for today's session would be that I would be discussing the teaching pedagogy which university and college teachers should be adopting and are adopting such that they are in sync with the National Education Policy 2020. And for the details of this, I would like to discuss when I have my turn to talk about it.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Kasturia. I'll come back to you. Now I would request Jaswinder sir, sir, if you can have your opening remark.
Yeah, good afternoon, everyone. Glad to be a part of this August, educationists. I basically come from an edtech company. We are into technology-driven learning and especially into languages. Work with around 3,000 schools and 1 million students every day. My focus today is going to be on how do we use technology to achieve the challenges put forward by NEP 2020. Though great document, but there's a lot needs to be done. And I think technology can be savior. It can help us achieve whatever NEP 2020 envisages. That is one. Second is I'm also going to talk about languages, since we work with schools on language development and all that. The concept of teaching in mother tongue, how is it going to be implemented? Why is it good? I find it to be a very good move. How will it help our students? And what is going to happen to the other languages? How do we make sure that our students actually acquire more and more languages? So that's where I'm going to focus in today's session. Look forward to the second part of the session where I can talk in details. Thank you, Rajulji.
Thank you, sir. I'll come back to you for a detailed perspective. I again would like to check, Kesar ma'am, if we have your presence. So can we have your 1 minute opening remark?
Well, good afternoon, everyone. All the panelists present here and the audience who are attached with us here. I would like to speak about the experiential aspect that NEP is going to bring, and which is a fresh breath of change which is required in the current scenario of education in most of the institutions. Barring a few institutions, a very handful of them, all the others are not that much of this type of methodology. I would also like to speak something about and share my views on the different the degrees that the government has set for the children to be achieved, and the levels like after 1 year, 2 year, and how it is going to be really beneficial on one hand. On the other hand, it also has its demerits when we look towards as education, when we look towards the future as gaining knowledge amongst the youth, and when we look for scholars particularly. So these are going to be my areas of speech. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you, Kesar ma'am, for this. I'll come back to you. Now, with this, we come to the next part of the session, which is the main talk stage part. I would be inviting all our key speakers, and they would be sharing their detailed perspective on their chosen area. But before I invite our first speaker, I just would like to share the learnings which we have had during our last 148 sessions. During our last 148 sessions, almost every participant shared that this is a wonderful document. This document has a potential to place India at that coveted position of a Vishwa Gyan Guru. But at the same time, same number of participants shared that this is such an ambitious document going to be very, very difficult in terms of execution. A lot of people also cited the example of CCE, that it was also a wonderful initiative, but got failed due to poor execution. Many educators said that finance is going to be a key concern area. Many people said that teachers training is going to be a concern area. Many other educators said that yes, teachers training is a concern area, but the bigger concern area would be lack of intent among teachers to get trained. A lot of other experts, educators who participated shared that good schools in urban areas already implementing many of these ideas. So the biggest challenge would be for rural schools, budget schools, and the government schools. Many educators also shared their assessment that this pandemic has exposed the poor distribution of digital infrastructure in our country. So that is going to be another key challenge. So I would request all our key speakers that while sharing your perspective, if you can also suggest some suggestion or some best practice which you have been doing in your respective institution. So that would make this session more useful and we all can learn from each other. So with this, I would also request you all please keep that time limit in mind at 8 to 10 minutes. 10 minutes is the maximum time limit so that we have sufficient time in the end for the questions. So with this, I would invite our first key speaker, Rita Sen ma'am. Rita ma'am, over to you.
Thank you so much, Rajul, and a very good afternoon to everyone. As I said earlier, if there is one aspect of NEP 2020 that really merits serious discussion, it is its focus on inclusive education. Now, the NEP 2020 talks about inclusive and equitable education, which will lead to an inclusive and equitable society in which every citizen will have the opportunity to dream, to thrive, and to contribute to nation building. Now, what do we understand by inclusion? By inclusion, we mean that it is a system in which all children are part of mainstream schooling. It does not differentiate between children with different needs, children coming from different socioeconomic backgrounds. Now, if you ask me, this concept of inclusion is not really new to our country. If we talk about our age-old Gurukul system, we find that everyone learned together. The children of the rich and the poor, the mighty and the not so mighty, the king's son as well as the commoner's son, they all had a role to play to help each other to live and learn in harmony. The teacher and the taught, they all belonged to a process which was dynamic in nature. By dynamic here, I mean that the teacher shifted and changed his teaching strategy or teaching style in accordance with the students that he had. As the students evolved, so did the teacher. But today's society is highly heterogeneous. There are tiers of economic, social, cultural, linguistic, and ability differences. So the teacher really needs to be a magician to modify the curriculum and the assessment pattern to suit everyone. The one size fits all policy really does not apply. The classroom must be a dynamic platform where the teacher can use her wisdom to make simple changes to accommodate everyone, to allow every child to participate in classroom transaction. When children come to us initially at the lower classes, they are of different shapes, sizes, colors, genders, personalities. They have different preferences, they have different interests, different learning styles, different ability levels, different developmental levels, different strengths and weaknesses. They come from a widely different linguistic, cultural, ethnic backgrounds. It's really a melting pot of diversity. But one thing that is common among all these children is the fact that they're all capable of learning. They just need to experience success and security. They need to feel valued. They need to feel loved and accepted by their peers. An inclusive classroom is therefore one which attempts to meet these diverse needs of all the children. Now, what is the scope of this inclusion? It's very, very wide. And a well-designed program must have the potential to meet the diverse needs of all those who come within its ambit. Broadly speaking, we can have children from the economically weaker sections, we can have children from disadvantaged groups, we can have children of migrant laborers, working children, children living on the streets, children belonging to minority groups, children with special needs, children who are differently abled. And how do we address this huge problem? In my opinion, it has to be a two-prong attack, one at the systemic level and the other at the school level. At the systemic level, we need to focus on remedial measures, schemes and policies to remove barriers and to promote the participation of all. Today's inequality in the classrooms is more about exclusion. It is about keeping some children out of school, whether it is accidentally or deliberately. There are some segments of society which do not send their children to school historically, either because of ignorance or because of lack of opportunities. And it's a Herculean task on our part and requires a sustained effort on all fronts to bring all these children to school, to the classroom. And it is not just about improving the infrastructure, but there has to be a major rehash in content and transaction of education, a reorientation of mindsets of all. We must have policies and programs that make the system more inclusive. Some basic principles that we can follow in schools are, say, for instance, a better understanding of what inclusion means, adopting the right set of values to promote inclusion, being non-judgmental and non-discriminatory approach, the ability to accommodate and accept all children and treat them equally, and the understanding that the problem is not because there is anything lacking in the individual, but because of a systemic failure, because of the kind of support or opportunities that someone got or did not get. So education per se, is a human right to learn how to live, to be equipped to understand the world around, and the idea of how to conduct oneself in all circumstances. And to achieve this, we must believe that all children can learn and all children can benefit from education irrespective of their background or their ability levels. Schools, the problem is that most schools accept this in principle, but not in practice, because it is connected to a whole lot of other things. For instance, the ranking of a school, the reputation of a school is largely because of the academic results that the school gets in public exams. And the ranking also is based on academic results, whereas a truly inclusive school cannot have these parameters. So the best school is not one which has the best academic results. The best school is one where children feel good, children feel safe, children feel secure, and they feel valued for who they are. That's inclusion at its best. Now, at the school level, there needs to be a major change in the curriculum transaction. Today, the curriculum and the curriculum transaction is generally structured to address a homogeneous group. Whereas an inclusive classroom, by definition, is one in which there is a wide range of diversity, and dealing with that demands a complete change in perspective. The same methodology that works in a homogeneous class will not work here. So it is extremely important to have a collaborative and a supportive management who will find alternate teaching methods, who will provide opportunities to their teachers to be trained and to be equipped with this new methodology, and also which will take steps to sensitize other children, because that builds confidence of each and every child, and that creates an environment of trust, of care, and it can restore the dignity of all the children. Now, we know when we talk about a school situation, we know that tests and exams are an integral part of school education, and they cause a lot of stress, particularly to those who are low achievers. And one of the most important reasons for dropping out of school is low achievement. So an inclusive school does not abandon children with low scores or brand them as underachievers. Management takes steps in these schools so that there is a special educator, there are remedial lessons, there are reinforcement classes. It must have a well laid out pedagogic framework where children don't feel pressurized. There is no feeling of inadequacy that will lead to some lack of interest, absenteeism, and eventually dropping out of school. So the assessment pattern in these schools should be able to promote a stress-free environment. The culture of cooperative learning in a heterogeneous classroom has to be adopted. And this assessment period can be broken up into smaller components so that the child does not feel threatened by the volume of work he has to do. Most schools, unfortunately, talk about all-round development of children, but they focus mainly on academic results. The emotional aspect of a child is completely neglected. Now, an inclusive school assessment must take the emotional component also into account, because otherwise we will miss out on a very, very valuable component of a child, that is his feelings. We must understand that these children come from very different and difficult backgrounds. And so they look for comfort, they look for solace and security in the school from their teachers and friends. Supposing a child, what do we do when a child has lost his parent, or the only caregiver, for instance, who is the grandmother, is in hospital? How the school will deal with such a child and provide an environment of trust and security goes a long way and is very, very crucial for the kind of learning that that child will get. So the aim is to create a caring atmosphere, accepting each and every child as they are, making sure that a child feels safe and secure. And for this, for instance, in a very small way, I'm saying in this classroom, the teacher, when the teacher is doing some group work, it should be a group of children with mixed abilities, not just the best ones. so that there is maximum participation and each child feels valued. Each child feels that he has contributed something to that particular work, and therefore barriers to learning are reduced. In this context, the PTA can play a very, very important role, because PTA, or the Parent Teacher Association, because you see, school education needs to be very meaningful and pleasant. Home is the first school of a child, and the school is actually an extension of the home. So the role of the PTA should not be just on paper. It should actually facilitate the education of children. It should be able to handle issues at home which negatively impact education, like for instance children getting involved in household chores, children being employed in small jobs, absenteeism, then using bad language, having small, bad habits like lying or stealing or general bad behavior. The PTA can really build trust between the two, the home and the school, and can build bridges. The goal is that the parents must be able to see the school as a secure place, which cannot be provided at home and which cannot be replaced. And this integration, if it has to be successful, requires constant guidance and constant support to parents, particularly those who are not educated. They have to be taught, tutored, encouraged to meet teachers, to meet the special educators regularly and monitor their child's progress. The school, of course, can provide a comprehensive report from time to time to the parents so that they are all on the same page. And in this process of inclusion, an entire team has to work to allow the wheel of inclusion to run smoothly. And as we all know, the teacher is the most important cog in this wheel. In the traditional setup, the teacher would implement only the policies made by the management. In an inclusive setup, the teacher is empowered to create these policies, to design as per her needs. She adapts the curriculum, she implements it, and that can make a huge difference in the class. An inclusive teacher, teaches all the children as individuals and employs a variety of strategies and teaching methods to teach them by being flexible in her methodology and in the teaching learning process. So what we need to do as educators, as part of management, is to focus on the capacity building of teachers, to empower them. We have to go much beyond the standard, teacher training methods and expose them to newer methods of teaching, which should be child-centric, which should be activity-based. But nothing can happen in thin air. So they have to be given support in terms of material. Material should be made available. There has to be an active resource center, ongoing in-service training, and most importantly, a proper system of teacher appraisal. There has to be a difference between an average teacher and an extraordinary, effective, and committed teacher. There has to be a system of incentives to motivate these extraordinary teachers who will go that extra mile to do things to include children. So all in all, I think inclusive education has a very, very positive effect on the system, because it not only helps the teacher, no matter what amount of teacher training the teacher has received, handling an inclusive class can work wonders. The school becomes more complex and more challenging and can achieve much more than just academic results. Children who go to an inclusive school are much better adjusted individuals in behavior and in life skills, and an inclusive classroom has a much better effect even on the other kids, because they become more sensitive, more adjusting and accepting someone who is different. So all in all, it's a win-win situation, and our effort should be to make all schools truly inclusive in letter and spirit. Thank you.
Thank you, Rita ma'am, for this wonderful and powerful, useful talk. You talked about the important intervention which this NEP is making in this inclusive education. You said that every children has the capability to learn, but that that they need the right set of environment. So it is the duty of all the educators that we need to contribute in creating that kind of environment. You also talked about where we need that systematic interventions, be it at policy level, infrastructure, reorientation of mindset. You also talked about where you said your assessment that education empowers human to exercise their right of life, effectively. You also talked about that curriculum and curriculum transaction need to address the diversity we have, inside our classrooms in our society. You also talked about that we need to create an environment where children should not feel pressurized, but they must feel valued. You also talked about that, we need to have, a customized assessment, I would say process, and NEP is also talking about it. You also talked about the importance of parents-teacher association, which can play crucial role in achieving these objectives. And in the end, you said teacher is the most important element in the entire process. And this NEP is empowering teachers with various reforms, which it is proposing. So big thanks, Rita ma'am. I would be coming back to you with questions. Thank you for your remarks.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Now, I would invite Kesar Patel ma'am. Kesar ma'am, if we can have your thoughts, your ideas in detail. Kesar Patel ma'am. Kesar ma'am, do we have your presence? Mathura Prasad sir, if we can have your ideas in detail.
Sure, sir. Definitely, I'm ready. Yes. Great, sir. Very good afternoon once again. And it was a really wonderful talk about the NEP, National Education Policy by Sain ma'am, Rita ma'am. And really, Rajul sir, you have created really a good platform for all of us to come together, talk to each other, and bring out some the best, right? And then really this is going to support to develop the quality of our education system in school education as well as in higher education. See, as we move the world, so move the voice in tune with changing times and way. This is the Tirukural on education, which is there in Tamil Nadu. To live in harmony with the fast changing world is a true wisdom. It means that we need to understand the fast changing world. Accordingly, we need to update our system. So the basic principle of human capital theory stresses the role of education as a productivity changing investment, enhancing investment. The gap between the knowledge and life and the work and the education is more than ever before. Now, at present, because of lack of skills, young people on completion of their education and training have great difficulty. Employers today are deeply concerned about the lack of 21st century skill, namely the problem solving skill, critical thinking skill, communication skill, collaboration skill, and self management among the employees nowadays. Research and discussion have been giving the idea and have shown that these skills are the best learned in academic setting. So students should learn these skills before they leave the school, for they are not just for the workplace. Higher education or vocational education, technical education should also be given to them. But for dealing with all the aspects of the life in this era, people and the organization have to continuously adopt, change, innovate, create, and network in order to survive and succeed. Experiential learning would be an intelligent response to such constant, complex, and dramatic changes. Their people would continuously expand their capacity to create and result they truly desire, where new and expansive pattern of thinking would be nurtured, where collective aspiration is set free, and where the people are constantly learning how to learn together. Here, the national education policy is transforming the complete academic structure: fundamental literacy and numeracy, universal access to education, examination reforms, vocational education at school level starting from 6th class, three language formula. It means that English, international language, Hindi, national language, and the regional language, mother tongue. Teacher development program. Nowadays, teachers are not given proper development. So the teacher development program should be there in each and every school, in a state, in the central, governance through the school complexes. Work together like Sauda school, like cluster school, we can regulation and accreditation of the school, quality management of the school. In higher education, restructuring higher education institution. It is now important because in all over the world, research is on top, but in India, we have to develop more on research. Because why are we not bringing the Nobel Prize in any subject? What is the reason behind it? This is the something which is paining to me, and we need to do something best in the higher education so that the people grab the Nobel Prizes in physics, chemistry, language, in other subjects. Focus on liberal education, multi-entry exit degree programs, eliminating affiliating system in universities, emphasizes on research and innovation, equity and inclusion, professional education, higher education commission in India, technology in education, vocational in education, adult education, promotion, and importance of the language is given. See, now this government has created the great document that is called the National Education Policy, which has given us the platform to work on it and to develop the quality of our schools, our teachers. So the gap between the current state of learning outcomes and what is required must be bridged through the undertaking major reforms that bring the highest quality, equity, and integrity into the education system from LKG to the PG level, from early childhood care to the education to the higher education. The aim must be for India to have an education system by 240 that is second to none. Means we will be the teacher, guru of the world with the equitable access to the highest quality education for all learners regardless of social and economic background. So NEP has given the great base, great concept to think and to start working on it. The principal has given the purpose of the education system is to develop good human beings capable of rational thought and action, possessing compassion and empathy, courage and resilience, scientific temper, creative imagination, with sound ethical mooring, okay, and the values, Indian values. It aims at protecting engaged, productive, and contributing citizens for building the equitable, inclusive, and plural society as envisaged by our Constitution of India. So, what has to be given? Now, the new education policy has created the 5 plus 3 plus 3 plus 4 program, 5 years foundation, complete foundation, and it has to be strong, which is called the pre-primary till second, pre-primary, nursery, LKG, UKG plus class 1 and 2. It means that the foundation should be very strong. Then second stage is a preparatory stage where they can develop discovery, activity-based and interactive classroom learning can be there. And then middle school where the vocational education is introduced, where we can develop the experiential learning in science, mathematics, art, social science, and humanities. And ultimately, the secondary education, that is for 4 years, 9 to 12. Multidisciplinary study, great critical thinking we need to develop in this area. What I say that if a child is there in class 9, work hard for 4 years, then enjoy next 40 years, right? If you will enjoy these 4 years, you will have to cry next 40 years. What do you want? Right now, you have to decide in ninth class that work hard for 4 years and then enjoy next 40 years. You want to make your life the best life. You want to become the diamond of the society, diamond of your family, diamond of the country. So you have to change yourself from means ninth itself. You have to become diamond. To become the diamond, you have to undergo the high pressure and temperature. It means that the discipline which is created by the school system. Inclusive education means this has been given in the NEP. The meaning is we need to respect every child who is coming to school. There are few children, those who are not able to come to school because of the means the peer pressure. The hooting is there. They don't get respect properly. So we need to create the means well-being in school, health and well-being in school means we need to create the one respect for every child, that every child has to be given proper respect and has to be given the place in the society, in the school, developing the social personal quality and creating the safe and healthy school environment for every child, implementing innovation in the school education from LKG to 12. And what has to be done now? Transforming pedagogy, teaching, learning in the 21st century skill. Every subject we need to develop teacher training program, subject wise quality development program. Means what I have started in my school, PALS, peer assisted learning strategy also, where the children are teaching to other children. So this has been given in America means, but what I did, I started in my school also, where I am finding the great change among the children, and the teaching is going on very high quality level. They are learning so interestingly, and then developing the collaborative learning. So means helping to each other, where the teachers and the children, they are helping to each other, and then result is coming by the activity, where they are respecting to everyone. Now, when they are collaborating to each other, then experiential learning happens, and then they develop the activity. They bring the theory concept to the practical life, and then ultimately the result is coming. Another way also is there art integrated learning. Art integrated learning means where the every subject can be taught with the help of the art. This can be the performing art. This can be the drawing. Means concept. We need to incorporate the art integrated learning in all the subject, whether it is the science, English, mathematics. My student used to participate in Odyssey of the Mind, which is means started in America, Iowa University, and where the our students were participating, and 8 minutes are given to perform the team, where the child team has to show the thinking skill, social skill, emotional skill, aesthetic skill, scientific skill, literary and creative skill, physical education, means everything, all those skills you need to perform on the stage within 8 minutes. So that system has to be created in our country, in the school education system, where everything has to be correlated to each other, and there should not be a strict distance between two subjects. Art integration has to be there with all the subject. Means competency has to be developed. How the competency can be developed? Where the knowledge is given to the child. After getting knowledge, the child is developing the understanding, and then he is developing the application. To develop the application, teacher has to work a collaborative way with the child, and then develop some experiences. You can develop the experience by taking the life examples, then the competency of the child will be developed. So what has to be given now? Competency based education also has to be given, which is very much required, and it is given by the NEP. Now here, continuous learning assessment program, that is the CLAP program, which I have started in my school every week. CLAP program means where the children are given the opportunity with the parent to talk to the teacher. So there is a comfortable zone for every child where mother, father, teacher, and the children, they are talking for the development of the child. And what is the benefit I have received? There, a child which was not able to do well in the academic, now the child has improved 10%, 20%. So it's a really good thing which we can start in our school. Then integrating ICT in teaching and learning assessment. Rightly, this lockdown has given us the opportunity to work with the ICT, and we started the online classes. Really, this has supported me a lot, and we completed even the 90% portion in 12th class in the month of October itself. And after that revision, continuously revision was conducted, and I'm really happy that I have completed my all the annual examination in the month of March, conducted the parent teacher meeting. Today is the 1st April, and I'm happy. There is nothing pending with me. So only what is pending? Only the 10th and 12th examination is pending, which preparation is going on. I have conducted even the fourth pre-board is going on for 10th class, and third pre-board is going on for 12th class. So everything is planned systematically, and where the children are not able to come to school, I use the online classes and then make them understand learning outcomes and pedagogy. So where every subject topic has to be.
I would request you to conclude, because the time limit. We have
So,
time.
sir, I definitely. So what is happening now?
30 seconds to conclude.
Yes, sir. Learning outcomes and the pedagogy. It means that every chapter, every subject must be given the proper, this learning outcome is required and the child is able to achieve or not. So what is important now? We all have to work together to develop the child's education with the values of India. Means we need to develop the children education, 21st century education based on the Indian values. Thank you, Raju sir. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Pandey sir, for explaining almost all the important aspects from NEP. You talked about, you began by highlighting the lack of 21st century skills, we have among our learners, be it critical thinking, collaboration. You also talked about the important intervention of this national education policy, be it vocational, education at school level assessment, various reforms which it is proposing in teaching, teachers training. You also talked about that NEP is creating a link between school education and higher education that would eventually empower our learners. You also talked about this NEP has a potential to make India's education system the best by 2040. You also talked about the proposals which NEP is bringing on inclusive education, and then you talked about the need to adopt the collaborative learning. You gave a few examples on that part. In the end, you talked about the importance of art integrated learning and the integration of technology and how it has benefited. You gave your school's examples of how we can take the advantage of technology. So big thanks, Pandey sir, for participating and sharing these valuable thoughts.
Thank you, sir.
I would come back to you with questions.
Thank you.
I would come back to you with questions. Thank you, sir.
Thank
and
you.
now, after the two senior educators from school education, now I would invite Dr. Neha Kusturia ji, from the higher education. Neha ji, if we can have your perspective, from higher education, Neha Kusturia ji.
Yes, so I thank the India International Education Council, School Lalaji, and the World Education Review for giving me this platform to express my ideas on education. And so, in my opinion, after schooling, when an individual enters college, university, the education holds, a lot of importance in, in a way, bringing about, carving his career, his vocation for the rest of his life, and as well as bringing about his spiritual and emotional development. So, to that extent, the faculties in universities and colleges also have a responsibility and duty in molding the younger generation. So if you could allow me, Rajulji, I would like to share a small presentation in which I will just like to share my experiences as a faculty in SRM University, where I'm teaching BTech students as well as master's students, of what kind of teaching learning process I have adopted and which I have
Go ahead,
personally
but
seen.
I would just
Yes,
request, please keep the time limit in mind. We are running out of time.
yes, sure,
Uh,
sure.
So we are running
Yes.
10 minutes out of our schedule. So I would request
Yes,
you, if you please
sure.
keep the time limit,
Yes, it will be a quick
please.
presentation. Yes. So, as we are now talking of this national education policy, the one that has been recently proposed in 2020, the focus is on quality education, as opposed contrast to what was in 86, access and equity. So, when we are talking of quality education, um, we look for economically productive individuals, developing sustainable livelihood, and being able to positively contribute to the society. And with this, there are two aspects: school education and higher education. So, the policy I'll not be going in detail. So, for faculties and colleges and universities, how to make these proposals in NEP a reality? How can we have our teaching pedagogy, our teaching learning in higher education such that it is in sync with the NEP? And for that, we need to be creative and combine it with the knowledge that we have. Now, it's a three-pronged strategy. First of all, have a multidisciplinary learning approach, emphasis on experimental learning, and industry-focused pedagogy. Now, when we talk of multidisciplinary learning approach, something that we have been doing it at SRM, we are having an interdisciplinary course, Biology for Engineers, which we are offering to the engineering department students. And this helps them understand how biology, the various biological processes, how they can take inspiration from them and design complex machines. So we have the Shinkansen, which is a Japanese bullet train inspired by the kingfisher's beak. We have the camera being inspired by the human eye, the aircraft being inspired by the flight of a bird, and we have these Velcro being inspired by the fruit, the burdock plant. Uh, and another very important aspect is the industry focused pedagogy. Now, presently at SRM, we are offering two master's degree courses, MSc in biotech and microbiology. And these are, pharmaceutical biotech and drug designing and pharmacogenomics, food and dairy microbiology. These are some of the subjects that we have included in their syllabus, which are, the syllabus has been designed keeping with the needs of the industry, such that after the students pass out, they are having an opportunity to work in an industry or in renowned research institutions. Right. So, how do we make courses like these interesting for the students? So the approach that I personally take, biotechnology is, how living organisms, we can derive benefits from living organisms, how they can be used to provide various utilities of human benefit. So, for example, providing various compounds as drugs, vaccines. So how a compound from the laboratory, how it reaches the bedside. So by way of using flowcharts, illustrations, I personally try to make these courses interesting for the students so that they can apply this knowledge when they go out and work. Then when a drug enters the body, how, what is the concentration in the blood, where does it reach the site of action, what kind of effect it is producing. So to explain these complex concepts, It is good if we are using flowcharts, if we are using illustrations. It helps to make the lectures, especially online lectures, where we are not in a common physical space, to make them interesting to the students. Then, very much relevant to the present times, the COVID vaccine. We keep hearing of, we have the Covishield, which has come in. We have the Covaxin, which has come in. So, clinical trials. So we keep hearing that, every vaccine, every drug, it has to go through certain clinical trials, phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, phase 4. These are terminologies which are thrown at us at various news channels and in newspapers. So how we can explain, how I've personally explained these various terminologies to the students, they understand, it makes them interesting, and they go out and look for work in these various companies. For example, one of our students has just joined Spice Healthcare, where she is a scientific officer and she is involved in COVID testing. And then a very upcoming field in India, how the genetic information of a particular individual can help design various kind of drugs, and also determine what kind of response you would have after taking a particular drug. For example, certain individuals, they take a particular painkiller and they get an allergic response, others do not. And there are various examples. And personally, we have organized a talk for our students from the CEO of a company called Swagi, Suraj Ratan Kumar. He's a PhD from the University of Cambridge, and he has given the students a very good talk on personalized medicine. So, and another on how enzymes from various microbes like fungi, bacteria, how they can be used to make biosensors, sense the glucose level in the blood, and also to deliver insulin for diabetic patients. So these are some of the ways that have been adopted by me, and using various diagrams, illustrations, which have made the concept simpler for the students. Likewise, in food and dairy, fermented foods, what are the benefits? If we depict the same in the form of this table, the students get across easily and they are able to apply it. The bacteria, lactic acid bacteria, yeast, which are involved. And also something very common in our daily life, pasteurized milk. How do you know that that product or the milk that you are procuring is pasteurized? Simply doing the alkaline phosphatase test. So making students aware of these things through simple illustrations, flowcharts. And I would like to, as part of the university, I would like to bring forth this, that from the next academic session, we are introducing a BSc Food Technology course. And food technology is dealing with production, processing, preservation, packaging, quality, management of food and food products. And after this 3 years course, students get opportunities to work as a dietitian, a process engineer in the various industries. And of course, we are also having the Siemens Center of Excellence here, where students and faculty is being trained. We have faculty development programs, and students are also involved in various research projects with Siemens. And an upcoming webinar by a Nobel laureate, Professor Ada Yonath. She is the winner of the Nobel Prize in Chemistry in 2009, and our university she has agreed to give a talk in our university on the 4th of April on next generation antibiotics. And I invite all of you to be, registering for this very interesting webinar, which will be on 4th at 11:30. And so what I would like to conclude with today is that, yes, school education, whether it is pre-primary, primary, higher secondary, yes, it's important, because when students enter school, they have, school molds a particular individual to the extent that, yes, they don't know who they are And by the time they come out of school, yes, they more or less are aware of their needs, of their desires. But as faculties in universities and colleges, it is our responsibility and duty to channelize the desires of individuals in the right direction, so that whether they want to have, they want to have a career, or even if they don't want to be a career woman, or in any which way, to be good human beings, emotionally well developed, spiritually well developed. It is the university colleges which take this training forward, and which stays with an individual for the rest of his life. So just like school education is very important, college education is equally important, and faculties in the colleges must ensure, or these are some of the strategies I have personally taken, which I have seen that students become deeply interested in the subject being taught to them, and are also taking it forward in their life. So thank you, Rajulji, for this opportunity, and all the speakers here and the audience for listening to me
Right.
today.
Thank you, Nehaji, for this very interesting presentation and for your thoughts. Big thanks for your participation.
Thank you so
Now,
much for
I
having
would,
me.
thank you, ma'am. Now, I would request Kesar, ma'am, if you have your presence, so if you can have your perspective in detail. Kesar Patel, ma'am. Kesar, ma'am, do we have your presence? I would request Nikita Kothari, ma'am. I believe Nikita ji has also lost the connection. So now I would request Jaswinder sir, sir, if we can have your detailed perspective, Jaswinder sir.
Yeah, thank you, Rajul. So, like I said earlier, I'm going to talk about technology, and I'm talking about I'm going to put in how we take up these things. The first and the most important thing, when everybody talks about NEP, is about when we roll it out. The major challenge is going to be teacher training. We're talking about 14 million teachers in India to be trained on delivering it in a different way. We're talking about changing the way education is delivered. So once if the education has to be delivered, the process of delivery too has to be shown, and the teachers have to be trained. How do we do that? 14 million teachers, and that too in a short span of maybe a year or two. So what I would suggest is, well, since I've been into education 30 years now, I've been into technology driven education some 15 years now. So what I would want to put up here is that we need to train our teachers first in the process of using basic IT tools to identify, locate, and access the right kind of information that we want, and then filter it. Teachers need to be trained on these basic skills. Once this is done, they will be able to go to the next step of learning on their own. We are talking about training our children to think. First, we need to teach teachers how to set up that thinking process. So this is something very, very important that I personally feel is that teachers need to be trained. And initially to start with IT skills. I'll tell you why. We are dealing with students whose pace we as teachers will never be able to match. The way they learn or the kind of information access that they have is much, much more than what teachers have. Teachers will not be able to match their pace. So, how do we work on that? Why is this situation there? Understand, we as teachers are technology migrants. We have migrated into the use of technology, but today's student or the learner is a technology resident. He or she was born in the lap of technology. So obviously there has to be some way that we need to cope up. So my suggestion here is, first, let all teachers be trained on the use of technology, technological tools. I'm not talking about coding. I'm not talking about AI. I'm talking about simple tools to access information. Then give them access to learning tools so that they can learn what they need to teach. I'll give you a simple example. How do we make learning interesting? One simple thing, we need to implement something known as flipped classroom. NEP 2020 does talk about research-based learning. We should stop giving them ready-made textbooks, ready-made content. We should stop giving them downloads so that they can vomit it out. We need to give them what they need to know to identify what they should be able to do after a certain learning cycle. That is what you do. So I want to give you an example of what a typical flipped classroom could be. Because when we talk about implementing technology, again, implementing technology in all the schools across the country is a challenge. But by using simple internet and a PDA, personal device, or a computer, or a tablet, or even a phone, a mobile phone, you can do these things. Let me give you an example. Say, suppose if I had to teach a topic on volcanoes, and if I had to do it today, I would go to the class, say, okay, chapter number 5, I'm going to talk about volcanoes, and blah, 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 blah. I download all that I know. It's a one-way dissemination of information. There's no guarantee whether the child is interested, or is understanding, or is retaining what is being said. Vis-a-vis this, if we do something else, we tell our students that tomorrow I'm going to talk about volcanoes. So I want each of you to come back to me with at least, or say, 10 lines on volcanoes. What is it that the kids will do? Straight go onto the internet and Google volcanoes. Unfortunately, they will not be able to get 10 lines. They will get 10,000 lines on volcanoes. So this is where research starts. They go through those things, identify the kind of information at the level, and create a presentation. So what they'll do, they will read through that. So one very important thing, like I told you earlier, we work with more than 1 million students every day in our country, and our reports say that students are increasingly reading less. Reading as a habit is not forming. So first thing that you all need to do, that we all need to do, is see to it that students actually form the habit of reading. Because when we are talking about research-based learning, they will have to read a lot. The information is there. Unless you read it, you're not going to get it. So get that onto that. And what does a child do? He goes to that, prepares a presentation, and the next day in class, each child gets up and talks about his points. He puts in a presentation. The first skill that the child acquires is how to present. Very important, right? Second, they have to communicate. So communication skills are picked up. Third, they have to collaborate, because each of these 30, 40 students are going to get their own stuff, and then they're going to collaborate to understand more, learn more. So collaboration and peer group learning. If this is what we deploy, for this, you don't need anything except students having access to internet. They already have. What happens is, all this time, what the teacher does is teacher facilitates this learning. Instead of being a sage on the stage, she or he becomes a facilitator, sees to it that there is harmony in the class, students are discussing, and positively they come out with learning. That is what is important. Since the students are involved with amongst themselves, involved with each other, and when they learn from their peers, they never forget that. And that is a very, very interesting way of acquiring knowledge, understanding core subjects and things like that. So this is what I would suggest. If we start with things like this, we can get onto what we want. We're talking about critical thinking, but first show them how to think. Give them an opportunity to think. What we do is we give them everything ready. Give them small problems. It may start from going and locating a piece of information, converting that information into a piece of knowledge, and then disseminating, giving it to the friends. This is, if we do it, students would love doing things, and they will start using their brains. What is happening today? The press of a button, kid has all what he wants, everything ready. No, we need to show them how to use their brains. Indian brains are far much better than the others. Logical thinking is possible, but we need to give them that platform. So this will happen if teachers also get trained into this thing. What the teacher needs to do, like I want to give you an example. The best teacher ever was Chanakya. And you know what he said? A teacher is a person who sits along with the child, the learner, tells him, I know as much as you know, let's learn together. So the teacher will have to come down to that level, have that learning process, that journey along with the students. That is where learning happens. And this is the kind of thing, is what we are talking about. How do we get these kind of learning happening? So all in all, what I would say is, teachers need to be trained on simple IT skills, one, and then they move on to others. And like the government has already come up with a lot of portals where teachers can be trained, because like Rita ma'am said, it can't be one size fits all, one piece of one kind of training fits all. Let teachers also acquire their learning at their own pace, in their own privacy, at their own leisure, at home. And that all is again possible through technology. So that is what I would talk about technology. It is not a very big thing. Technology is not big. Today, India has the cheapest internet in the world, and internet is penetrated everywhere. All we need to do is to get the teachers and the students with a device. I'm sure our country can afford that. Rather than subsidizing paper and subsidizing X and Y, let them subsidize these devices so that everybody has access to information and knowledge. One. I basically come from the language field. We use technology to deliver language solutions. So now this is what I want to talk about. What has NEP 2020 got to? What is the new thing that they've got it? The first and more important thing is they're talking about that during the early foundation years, it is not compulsory, try to teach them in the mother language or the mother tongue or the local language. How does this help? If we are talking in this way that we are trying to teach them English, and at the same time we're teaching them other core subjects like mathematics and EVS in English, that poor child doesn't know, is not able to comprehend on one side. How do you expect him to learn? But if you look at his mother tongue or the local language, the child already knows that language before he comes to school. So understanding core subjects becomes very, very simple, and they can think better. The fear of learning goes away. The joy of learning comes in. So that is a very welcome move. Though they have not made it compulsory, if I were to run a school of my own, if I were to do, I would adopt that. But that does not mean that we teach in that language only. And like it is said in NEP 2020 that they can have English from class 8 onwards. No, that's not going to work. Understand one thing: kids by the age of 8 can acquire up to 5 languages. NEP 2020 talks about the 3-language formula. We just want them to acquire 3 languages. And which are those 3 languages? One is the local language or the mother tongue. Second is a foreign language, which is English. Third, Pandisa, you were talking about national language, Hindi. No, they're talking about classical language, where they are talking about Sanskrit and languages like that. How does that work? One, local language to understand core subjects. English, because that's the language the world does business in. We need to have that. And third is the classical language. With the local language, not only will they understand the concepts clearly, they will know about the local heritage and the local culture, which is very, very important. With your international language, you are able to understand, you are able to access maximum amount of information which is on the internet, that is in English. Not only that, you do business with the world and your outlook changes. One. Third, when we talk about classical languages, let's take example of Sanskrit. That's not the only classical language, but let's take example of Sanskrit. If you are able to understand this language, read this language, or maybe even speak, you will be able to get access to that millions of pages of knowledge which is buried into the scriptures of Indian scriptures. A lot of information, a lot of science, a lot of experience which is already there. We can access that. The other countries are accessing, why not us? So this is what is important. One more thing, there's another research says that if a child can speak 3 or more languages, their brain works better. Imagine one sentence they use 3 languages and still make logical meaning out of it. That's an art. That's logic building. That's convincing how they work on that. So this is what I would say is a fantastic step by the policymakers of getting local languages. What are we doing? We are giving the right kind of respect and the stature to the local language. With Sanskrit and language, that we bring in more nationalism. With English, they can access the whole world and a lot of information. All this is very, very important. So overall, great work done. I think all schools should adopt this. There was another question: how do we get so many teachers? How do we train so many teachers in these languages? You don't have to worry.